Hey everybody, welcome to the GMG review. Today we're taking a look at the Ossiarch Bonereapers, the newest army from Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And when I say newest army, I mean newest army. This is a brand new army addition to the Grand Alliance of Death, and since the Deepkin, I think, probably the newest like ground up army. It reuses a couple of units, so I guess it's not a purely brand new model line like the Deepkin were, but Nagash gets an out because he's Nagash and gets to join anything, and so do the Mortarchs. But it does use the, what are they called? The Harbingers, the big wingy guys as well. But everything else is brand new. And if you've been living under a rock and haven't been watching GW's media campaign for these guys, they're basically the answer to Nagash gets really angry that Sigmar is working with souls making the Stormcast Eternals and says, "Hold my beer," and decides he's going to do it better. And that's kind of the jam here. They have some echoey kind of like design elements that kind of look like the Tomb Kings, but for the most part, this is a brand new army. They have a little bit of a, like, there's some pyramids you can see in their endless stuff and terrain. I'm really hoping these terrain kits actually get released eventually. they may very well. You usually see these things for the first time in these books. And they have kind of a casket of souls and a catapult and stuff. So they do echo, I guess, the Tomb Kings from the world that was. But for the most part, this is a pretty brand new, unique looking army. And what I'm going to do today is go through, give you a sort of short story didn't read version of what's going on here. And then jump into the army listing and see all the new cool stuff. A lot of new profiles. In fact, I think this has more profiles than the Idnith did at launch, so it feels like a pretty complete army list. And we'll jump into what their jam is. They are the Reapers of Bone. So basically, the difference between the Ossiarch Bonereapers and the Bone Tithe and the Stormcast is that instead of taking a heroic soul from ages past and reforging it into like a big beefy Space Marine sized body, the man Nagash decides instead he's going to take the best bits of all the soul stuff that he's collected and make these like amalgamate creatures that are the best at what they do. So it's a little bit like, you ever seen the Kurt Russell movie Soldier, where the better super soldier shows up that's like better engineered or whatever, or the better replicant? Because if you really know your history, you know that Soldier was actually set in the Blade Runner universe, and that Todd was a replicant, and that the better replicants got to take his place. Anyway, we have a cool new 2-player starter featuring the Ogre tribes, and you can watch a battle report between the Ossiarch Bonereapers and my Ogres up here in the cards if you want to see, between me and Owen. And this is the army that Owen is most excited about right now, and we'll be starting off with right now, using the star set to kind of like jump off. So the Tithe of Bones, the Ossiarch Legion basically encounters a settlement of living. They don't attack it. They wait to see if people will just give out what they want, which is souls and bones and swords, or souls. And so they're not. I mean, they are kind of like the Ossiarch Legion is kind of a crusading force, but basically Nagash is trying to get what he's due, because he really feels like Sigmar's wronged him in that death is his realm, right? Heavens is the realm of Sigmar. And using soul stuff to make your legion was kind of his jam, and so he is not best pleased by any of this, and so he's making his own super legion basically to fight everybody else and claim back what he believes is his. Because the elves are siphoning off souls for the Idnith, and because they've captured Slaanesh, they're pulling the elven souls out to try and like save them, and that's what's being tithed off to Malarian and Teclis, and then also to what's her name, Marathi as her sort of like bit. And he doesn't like that either. So people are playing with souls, and Nagash doesn't like it. And this is his answer to that, basically. Lots more information about the Lands of Bone and Dust and all of the different cool like planar areas in the Mortal Realms that are laid claim by the legions. And all the various different factions within the legion. So like the Stelliarch Lords, the Ivory Host, and there's rules for all these as well. The Nullmyria, the Crematorians. Nagash himself, because he does show up in this army list, along with Archon the Black. Catacros, the Mortarch of the Necropolis. You've all seen this guy. He's kind of like Serpentor to Archon's Cobra Commander, to give you some age-old references here. He's the best war leader they could possibly make. Vokmortian, the Master of the Bone Tithe. This is the one that comes in the 2-player star set. He's I believe a unique model to that box for a little while, probably, but they usually release it within a year of it coming out. The Morghasts, the Death Riders, the War Giants of Ossia, The Mortek Crawlers, which is the big, it's crazy, catapult. The Gothizar Harvesters, which is the big, like, amalgam monster. Your Behemoth. And yeah, some color sections too, so you can see these great stuff. The different, I like that basically Catacross' Mortarch Necropolis, like him standing on this plinth here, all of these characters do a job. So like the Legion Mortis, he's like the bodyguard. The Aviarch Spymaster is the guy trying to get like all of the like info, basically the intel on what's going on. The Gnosis Scrollbearer is like keeping all the tactical lore basically nearby if Catacross wants to reference it. And the Prime Necrophorus is his like standard bearer. So like I do like this. It's basically a command detachment as a single miniature. And I wasn't a huge fan of it initially because I was like, it kind of looks like the Casket of Souls. When I realized it was basically his like command post, I liked it a lot more. And now that I know a bit more about these characters and how they basically act, I thought it was really cool. You also have some special characters. The mounted hero makes 2 models. It makes Arch Cavalos Xantos, and then you also get a generic version you can make for your own as well. The Mortesian Bone Shaper, Vokmortian, the Master of the Bone Tithe, because he's keeping track of who's tithed and who hasn't. And then you got your Mortesian Soul Reaper, Xantos, Mortesian Soul Mason. I love this guy walking around like the little like leggy throne. He makes me really happy actually. He kind of reminds me, and I know references again, it reminds me of Krang with his big weird body in the old Ninja Turtles cartoon, which makes me laugh. And then Archon and Nagash. Owen is currently painting Nagash, so if you want to see him on the table, you'll see him pretty soon. He's a big chunky army in this army though. He's almost half your army. And then you've got your Necropolis Stalkers, Immortus Guard for the Mortis Praetorians, and of course the Mortek Guard, which is the basic dudes. A Liege Cavalos, which is the generic rider. Your Death Riders, which are pretty cool. And then your Morghasts and the Gothizar. So you got a little bit of everything. You got in your Mortek Crawler, which is enormous, by the way. I'm pretty sure that's a night base that thing's on. Because when I look at it in scale with everything else, having seen how big these guys are, that thing is just like bananas big. It's either the Dragon base or the night base. I think it's the night base. I like that there's skeletal birds too flying around with it. It makes me happy. And the thing is so good. It's so good in the game. Which you guys will see soon. And there's an example of the army all arrayed. So they're really interesting because once we go through this, you'll see that you don't need a lot of guys, but they're real good at what they do. And then some painting tips. Of course, using some of the new Citadel technical paints too, and the contrast paints. Everybody likes contrast paints. And here we go, jumping in. Allegiance abilities, what you've all been waiting for. Shut up about the background. No one cares about that. No one cares about toy soldiers. Tell us what they do. All right, so Ossiarch Bonereaper needs to be your allegiance, and if it is, you have a bunch of special rules. The first one, Lords of the Ossiarch Empire. You can include Nagash and or Archon the Black in an Ossiarch Bonereaper army, even though they do not have the Ossiarch Bonereaper keyword on their Warscroll. If you do so, they gain the Ossiarch Bonereaper keyword on the Warscroll, but you cannot include any mercenary units. So basically, the disdain of these two characters for mercenaries means that you can't include marks if you have them in your army. I mean, Nagash is such a huge footprint in the 2,000 point list anyway, at like 40% of your, over 40% of your army, you're probably not taking them anyway. And then the Ossiarch Bonereaper Legions, if you choose, you can use one of the Legions. It's not a must though, so you don't have to use these, and you can choose from the Mortis Praetorians, the Petafrix Elite, the Staliarch Lords, Ivory Host, Null Myriad, and the Crematorians. And everybody gets them in their Warscroll. And then Deathless Warriors, roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a friendly unit that has a Hecatos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Mortek Hecatos, or wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper hero. So you get your 6+ shrug, and the Hecatos models get it no matter what, basically. So it's the usual Deathless Legions within 6. Ranks Unbroken by Descent. Do not take Battle Shocks for friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper units. The entire army is immune to Battle Shock. The entire army. No Battle Shock, ever. They just don't care. They're already dead. In addition, if your army is an Ossiarch Bonereaper's army, you cannot use command points. This is now interesting. Instead, you use Relentless Discipline points. At the start of each battle round, before determining who has the first turn, you receive 1 Relentless Discipline point for each friendly Bonereaper's hero that's on the battlefield. You receive 1 additional Relentless Discipline point for each Warscroll battalion in your army and each friendly liege that's on the battlefield. And 3 additional Relentless Discipline points if Catacross is your general and is on the battlefield. Then roll dice for each friendly Bonereaper unit on the battlefield. On a 6, get an additional Relentless Discipline point. So they're used exactly the same as command points, but can only be used for command abilities that appear on a Warscroll that has the Ossiarch Bonereapers keyword. For Ossiarch Bonereapers Legion command abilities and for the Unstoppable Advanced command ability below. So you basically can use these for only the abilities these guys have and their command abilities, but you get tons of them. And it also means that anything that screws the command abilities in any other army list doesn't work on you because you don't have command points, you have Relentless Discipline points instead. So you have your own pool of points to do with what you will, and you'll notice that a lot of stuff in here, they're like keying to use some of the command point abilities. And like, you don't need Inspiring Presence because you all have Inspiring Presence anyway. You're all always immune to Battle Shock. Unstoppable Advance. You can use this command ability in your movement phase. If you do so, pick one friendly unit that has a Hecatos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Mortec Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers hero. Add 3 to that unit's move characteristic in that phase. It can still run or charge if it does not run. You cannot pick the same unit to benefit from this command ability more than once per phase. So it's basically replacing the run 6. And you don't have to count as running, you just move plus 3 inches. Because the army's pretty slow, but instead of counting as running, you just add 3 to their basic movement instead. So I think it's a good trade-off, because running can be, it can be variable, or you can make it a 6 if you're willing to spend a command point. In this case, you can spend a command point to add 3 to their movement stat, which is almost, it's just reliable, right? So you can see how already, design-wise, this is an ability that allows you to speed up your army and make you very disciplined and reliable in what you do. Not a lot of variable stuff here. There is a designer's note. Many Ossiarch Bonereaper command abilities don't require hero to be nearby in order to use them. These command abilities represent orders issued by the leader of the unit. In addition, some abilities allow you to return slain models to your unit. When you do so, set up the models one at a time within 1 inch of a model from that unit. And returning models can only be set up within 3 inches of enemy units if any models in their unit are already within 3 inches. So you can bring them into combat as long as the unit's already in combat. And we're into command traits. Okay, so we have 2 different sets for Mortizans and for Liege Cavaloses. So Liege Cavalos, big guy on a horse, and his command trait abilities are, you have Ancient Knowledge. You receive an additional Relentless Discipline point at the start of the battle round if the general's on the battlefield. Immortal Ruler. You negate a wound or mortal wound on a 5+ instead of a 6 for your Deathless minions. Dark Acolyte. The general's a wizard and knows a spell from the lore of the Mortizans. This can attempt to cast one in your hero phase and unbind one in the enemy hero phase. So you get to cast one, unbind one for your warrior. And then Peerless Warrior. If the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with a melee weapon is a 6, inflicts a mortal wound on top of normal damage. And Hatred of the Living. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by this general. And their mount unless the target has the death keyword. So basically you don't like the living. I think that's the same one that the Night Haunts have. Life Stealer. At the end of the combat phase, if any enemy models were slain by wounds inflicted by the general's attacks, you can heal D3 wounds allocated to the general. And then the Mortizans, the Wizard Folk. You get Ancient Knowledge. Again, additional Relentless Discipline point if you're alive at the start of the battle, and on the battlefield. Immortal Ruler, 5+ instead of 6. For your Wound Shrug, Dire Ultimatum. Subtract 2 from the Bravery characteristic of enemy units that are within 12 inches of this general. Because you hold up the tithe and say, give us the bones, or this will happen. Why did I sound like Jeremy Irons there for a second? Weird. Grave Sandbones. This general knows an extra spell from Lord of the Mortizans. Oathbreaker Curse. Roll a dice each time your opponent receives a command point. While this general is on the battlefield, on a 6, the point is lost. And another character that also screws enemy command points. It's really interesting how they're ultimately disciplined and can't be messed with. And there's actually another character that also messes with enemy CPs to make them less reliable. Soul Energy. You can reroll casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for the general. If you do so, this general suffers a mortal wound after the effect of the spell are carried out. So you're basically spending what's holding you together to try and make the magic better. And then we're into artifacts. Relics of the Cavaloi. So this is for the Liege Cavalos. Take a Mind Blade. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If that unmodified hit roll for it is a 6, and the weapon target's a hero, your opponent loses command points. And the hero cannot use command abilities for the rest of the battle. They can't use their command abilities for the rest of the battle. Crazy. Command abilities, period, for the rest of the battle. The Lordly Phylactery. Once per battle, at the start of any phase, the bearer can use this artifact. If you do so, you gain D3 Relentless Discipline points. And the Scroll command, subtract 2 from the Bravery characteristic of enemies unit that are within 6 inches of the bearer. Gravesand Bone Plate. At the start of the combat phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3. On a 4+, that unit suffers a mortal wound. so at the end of the combat phase. Marrow Pact, once per battle, if you're in your hero phase, pick one enemy unit within 6 of the bear, invisible, and roll a die. On a 3+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and you can heal a wound allocated for each mortal wound you inflict. And then Helm of the Ordained, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper units and their mounts while they're wholly within 12 of the bear. That one's going to be super popular because +1 to hit is a +1 to hit aura for like a 24-inch bubble of +1 to hit. Why would you not take that? Like the other ones are all cool, but like they're all, except for like get discipline points, which you get so many anyway. Yeah, the Helm of the Ordained is just like an auto include. And then Tools of the Bone Shaper for the Mortesian Bone Shaper. You can take an Artisan's Key. Before you use the bear's Bone Shaper ability, roll a die on a 4+. You can either pick 2 units within 6 of the bear to be affected by the Bone Shaper instead of 1, or pick 1 unit within 6 to be affected twice. So that's a handy one. That's for bringing dudes back together. Load of Saturation. At the start of your hero phase, pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit that, other than the bear, it's within 1 inch of them. Until your next hero phase, the Deathless Warrior's battle trait negates a wound on a 5+ instead of a 6. That's another really cool one. The Crafter Gems. In your hero phase, you can heal up to 3 wounds allocated to the bear. Once the total number of wounds this artifact has been used to heal during the battle equals 3, it cannot be used again. So you can heal 3 wounds allocated to the bear, but then once you've done it, it's gone. It's done. Treasure of the Soul Mason. So the Mortesian Soul Masons get their own little set of artifacts, and so does the Soul Reaper. The Gothizar Cartouche. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly death units wholly within 9 inches of the bear if the target does not have the death keyword. So +1 to wound when attacking everyone that isn't death within 9. That's a pretty cool aura. Because now you can get +1 to hit and wound if you've basically got both of those overlapping from the other guy. But you need to get a second artifact somehow. Soul Reservoir, add 2 to casting rolls for the bear. However, if the casting rolls for the bear are unmodified 10+, the artifact cannot be used again. So you basically spend all the souls. The Throne of Zent, add 2 to the bear's wounds characteristic and add 2 to the attack characteristic of the ossified claws of the bear's mount. And then you've got the Mortesian Soul Reaper, Lumen Scythe, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks target the bear. In addition, add 1 to the casting rolls for the bear when they attempt Soul Blast, Pull of Doom, or any other spell from the lore of the Mortesians. A Vial of Binding, once per battle, if you're in your hero phase, pick enemy model within 12 of the bear that's visible and roll a die. If the roll is equal or greater than their wound characteristic, they are slain. So just kill a guy with a low wound characteristic. Whee! Number 3, Guardian Reeve Soul. The Deathless Warrior battle trait negates a wound or mortal wound allocated to the bear on a roll of a 5 instead of a 6. Instead of rolling the dice, you can say that the bear will shatter it. If you do so, the wound or mortal wound is negated without being rolled, but you can't use it for the rest of the battle. So when you're last wound, you can basically shatter it to stay alive. And we're on to your spells. So 6 spells for the lore of the Mortesians. Arcane Command is a casting value of 5. If successful cast, I get D3 Relentless points. You can just buy more Relentless points for a cast. Empower Naderite Weapons. Empower Naderite Weapons cast on a 5. If cast, pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit wholly within, 24 of the caster invisible to them. Until starting your next hero phase, that unit's Naderite Weapons inflict 2 hits to be scored on a modified hit roll of 5 instead of 6, or 4+ instead of 6 for a charging Cavalos Death Riders unit attacking with the Naderite Spears. So basically, anyone with Naderite weapons can get exploding 5/6s, or if they're charging Death Riders, 4+ exploding 6 for double hits. Protection and a Gash, cast on a 6. If cast, roll a dice each time a wound or mortal wound is allocated to the caster, and a 5+ it's negated. If any wounds or mortal wounds are allocated to the caster and not negated, and the caster is not slain, remove them from the battlefield after all of them have been allocated, and then set them up anywhere else, more than 9 from any enemy units. After setting up this model, the spell is unbound. So you get a cool, like it's like an old displacer field, basically, from 2nd edition 40k. If you get wounded by it, it just goes bam, you just disappear. You Nightcrawler out of there. Reinforced Battle Shields has a casting value of 6. If cast, pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit armed with shields or Naderite blade battle shields. Wholly within 24 of the caster, invisible until the start of your next hero phase. Roll a die each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound. A 5+ is negated. Drain Vitality has a casting value of 6. If cast, pick an enemy unit within 18 of the caster, invisible until your next hero phase. Reroll unmodified hit rolls of 6 for attacks made by that unit, and reroll unmodified save rolls of 6 for attacks made by that unit. So it's a debuff, basically. All their 6s go away, so with exploding 6 abilities would lose them, basically, because they have to roll another 6. And all their good 6+ saves will go away, too, and have to be rerolled. And then Mortal Contract, I would only ever shout that And then say, it has begun. As a cast value of 7, if cast, pick an enemy hit with an 18 of the caster invisible. For the rest of the battle, roll a dice at the end of each phase, during which any attacks made by this unit inflict any damage on a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit. On a 3+, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Cannot pick the same unit to be affected by this more than once. So basically, yeah, you curse somebody, and if they basically attack anybody and do any wounds, they take the mortal wounds because they break the contract. All right, we're into some legions. So there are, I think, 6 legions: Mortis, Stalwark Lords, Ivory Host, and yeah, Null Myriad, and the Crematorias. And of course, just like if you pick a legion, you're basically stuck with a command trait and artifact power, but you get some bonus abilities for your legion. Usually they give you a theme on top of that too. So the Mortis Praetorians, their Dread Legion special ability. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units that are within 12 inches of any friendly Mortis Praetorian units. So once you get within 12, everyone's -1 bravery. It's kind of cool, you're scary. And your command ability is Counter Strike. You can use this command ability at the start, at the end of the enemy charge phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Mortis Praetorian unit that either has the Hecatos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Mordek Hecatos, or is wholly within 12 inches of a hero, Mortis Praetorian hero. Until the end of the turn, you can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by that unit, that target an enemy unit that made a charge move in the same turn. So now think about that. If you get charged, and you have tons of these points basically, these relentless discipline points, when you get charged, your units become more dangerous. Because why would you not spend this ton of points you have to make them reroll their failed rolls to hit against charging units? So you're going to go second, you're going to take some damage probably, but then all of your guys become like way more killy. Then you've got your Mortis Praetorian's general has to have Catacrosis chosen. Once per battle at the start of your hero phase, if the general's on the battlefield, you can receive D3 additional relentless discipline points. And then Artificer's Blade, pick one of the bear's melee weapons. Its random characteristic becomes -3. So you get real good at stabbing. So that's pretty great. I think Catacrosis is from the Mortis Praetorians. That's his like home legion, so you can't use him outside of it. And then we get the Petrifex Elite. They have the Unstoppable Juggernaut rule, +1 to save rolls against Petrifex Elite units. So everyone gets +1 armor save. What? You have 4+ save infantry. So now I have 3+ save like line troops. Bananas. Command ability Bludgeon. You can use this command ability in a combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Petrifex Elite unit that either has the Hecatos keyword, or is wholly within 6 inches of a friendly Mordek Hecatos, or wholly within 12 of a friendly Petrifex Elite hero. In that combat phase, improve the rend characteristic of melee weapons used by that unit by 1. You cannot pick the same unit to benefit more than once. So better rend, that's cool. I don't think it's as good as reroll your misses. But then again, I don't think -1 bravery is as good as +1 to save rolls. That's just for free. Duh. Then your command trait is Mighty Archaeosian, +2 wounds for your general. And then Godbone Armor. The first wound allocated to the bear in each phase is just negated. He just doesn't suffer the first wound. That one's going to be hard to compete with. The Stalwark Lords. So they can run still charged in the same turn. That's pretty cool. Considering you can give people +3 movement, though, you don't really need to run in charge, because you can just kind of seep or relentless discipline them to have +3 move, which is kind of the same thing. And then your command ability, Rally Back. You can use this command ability in your movement phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Stalwark Lords unit that has a mount and either is wholly within 6 or wholly within 12 of a hero. So that unit can retreat in that phase and still charge later on as if it did not run. And then your command trait, Twisted Challenge. At the start of the combat phase, you pick an enemy unit, hero within 3 inches of the general. Until the end of that phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this general that target that hero, but subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by this general that target any other units. Your +1 hit, you challenge somebody. Your -1 hit anybody else. And then your artifact, the Nadir-bound Mount. You can roll D3 additional dice when this liege uses their Unstoppable Charge ability. But it's only the first Stalwark Lord's liege to receive an artifact power. Must be given this one. And I'm not sure exactly how that works if you decide to make someone else your general. So if you decide to make someone else your general, I guess, or if you don't have a liege in your army, could you give somebody else an artifact? That's interesting, because you just wouldn't take if someone with the liege trait. Oh, they might all have the liege trait. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not that memorized of the book yet. But I'm just curious as to whether or not you could get around having to take that ability otherwise. The Ivory Host, Simmering Rage. At the start of the combat phase, each friendly Ivory Host units within 6 of a friendly Ivory Host model that currently has any wounds allocated to it becomes subject to Rage. Add 1 hit rolls for attacks made by a unit that is subject to Rage, but subtract 1 from save rolls. So +1 hit, -1 save. I mean, you can take an artifact for +1 to hit. Yeah, it's not great. And then Temper Fury, you can use this command ability in the combat phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly Ivory Host unit that's subject to Rage and either has the Hekatos keyword or within 12 inches of Ivory Host hero. In that phase, do not subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target the unit because of its Rage. But still add +1 to hit. So you can use the CP to buy off the -1 save, basically. Yeah, I guess. I think you're going to have to really like the background for this one. Scrimshod Savage is your first command trait. Each your hero phase, roll a dice for this general on a 5+, add 1 of the attack characteristic of melee weapons that used by this general for the rest of the battle. So you just get potentially more attacks every turn. Each your hero phases on a 5+. But you might get none. You might get 0. And then you've got the Beastbone Blade. Pick 1 of the bear's melee weapons and add 1 to its attacks. So, I mean, you get +1 attack and you might get more +1 attacks, but then your basic trait is also a penalty and you have to buy it off. You don't want it to be a penalty. I'm sorry, Petrifex Elite. You're still looking pretty great. I'm not seeing anything arguing with the Petrifex Elite so far. The Null Myriad. The Eldritch Nulls. Each time a friendly Null Myriad unit is affected by a spell or a spell, roll a die, and a 5+, you ignore its effects. Hold Fast. You can use this command ability before you use the Eldritch Nulls ability for a unit that is either has a Hekatos keyword or wholly within 6 of a Mortec Hekatos or wholly within 12 of a hero. It becomes a 2+ instead of 5+. So for a CP, at a 2, or not CP, a discipline point for a 2+ instead of a 5+, you just ignore spells on basically your whole army if they're near a hero. Hey. That's pretty cool. I still don't know if it's any +1 save. Then your command trait is Unsettling and Sinister. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks with melee weapons to target the general. In addition, subtract 1 from Bravery characteristic of enemy units within 3 of the general. And then your artifact power is the Baleful Blade. Pick a melee weapon. Do not make save rolls for attacks made with that weapon, and wounds inflicted by the weapon cannot be negated when they're allocated to a model. So you have an unstoppable weapon all of a sudden. That's pretty cool. That's kind of like the old Fellblade for the I think was it the Skaven of the Fellblade? Because he stole it from Nagash, I think. And then finally, the Crematorians. Roll a dice each time a friendly Crematorians model is slain by an attack made with a melee weapon. Before it's removed from play, add 1 to the roll if the slain model is a hero or a monster on a 5+. Pick an enemy unit within 3 of the slain model, take a mortal wound. So bouncing mortal wounds into somebody, that's pretty neat. And then your command ability is the Levelers of Cities. You can use this command ability in the combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Crematorians unit that is either the Hekatos keyword or is wholly within 6 of a friendly Mortec Hekatos or within 12 of a friendly Crematorians hero. Do not apply the cover modifier to save rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by that Crematorians unit in the same phase. Basically, you ignore cover. And that's cool, but like, it's situational again. Your command trait is Wrathful Avenger. If the general is slain, add 2 to the immolation dice roll instead of 1, and if you roll successful, inflict D3 mortal wounds on the enemy instead of 1. You have the Searing Blade, your artifact. Pick 1 of the bear's melee weapons, add 1 to its damage. And there we go. And so now we have the Bone Tithe Nexus, which is like a really cool, big, like, statue of a dude. I really wish it came to life. It reminds me of the Idol of Cain. I wish it was like able to come to life, but it's super cool. Like, it's got like just a huge pile of bones basically around it, and then a huge like guardian statue. So now the Bone Tithe Nexus is a single terrain feature and an obstacle, and it has 4 different abilities that you can use. I think it might be one of the most useful like free terrain pieces in the game. In your hero phase, you can unleash one of the following 4 punishments. Punishment of Agony. Pick an enemy unit wholly within 18 invisible on a 4+. It's -1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit until your next hero phase. So a debuff. That by itself would be awesome. But then you also have Punishment of Death. Pick an enemy unit within 36 invisible. Roll a die on a 2+, take a mortal wound. So you can just finish off that almost dead unit or whatever. We have the Punishment of Ignorance. Pick 1 enemy wizard within 36 of this terrain feature invisible. 2+, subtract 1 from casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls until your next hero phase. You can debuff wizards too. And then finally, Punishment of Lethargy. Pick 1 enemy unit wholly within 18 of this terrain feature invisible. On a 4+, that unit cannot run into your next hero phase, and a D6 is used to make charge rolls instead of 2D6 into your next hero phase. That could be so powerful against Death Star units. Like, imagine using that against some huge like 400 or 500 point unit that really wants to get into melee and now always fails charge rolls on a 1 or a 2. Really potentially good. You get your own little battle plan here for Destroy the Nexus, your Path to Glory stuff, which we won't get into. And we're into battalions. Okay, so just like every other one of the books, you have one like big giant daddy like super battalion of all the little battalions underneath. And then you've got the 6 different battalions that make up this battalion here. So this is the Ossiarch cohort. And it's basically, you lead it with either Catacross, Arch Cavalos, Xandos, or 1 Liege Cavalos. And it's made up of at least one of each of the other battalions, but you can have 1 to 3 Mortec Shield Corps, a Trident, 1 to 2 Deathglaives, 1 Immortal, 1 Ballisteri, and 1 to 3 Cavalos Lances. And then each of these battalions basically it's focused on a different type of unit. So the Shield Corps, this is the one you might, if you're looking to get it, actually the first 2, if you're looking to get an extra artifact, you might try and take these because they're basically stuff you're going to take anyway. The first one, the Shield Corps, it's a Vokmortian, a Mortesian Bone Shaper, a Mortesian Soul Reaper, or a Soul Mason, one of those, and then 3 Mortec Guard units, which is your battle line. And then they're Unbreakable Bulwark. Basically, once per turn, when you use the Shield Wall command ability, it doesn't cost you 1 of your discipline points. So you get a free shield wall with that unit. You get your Mortesian Trident, and this one's really cool too, because it's a Bone Shaper, a Soul Reaper, a Soul Mason, and up to 1 Gothesian Harvester, and they get the deadly combination. Each Mortesian from this battle group can cast an extra spell in each hero phase if it's within 18 of the Harvester, and then Harvester's within 3 inches of the enemy unit. So the enemy, if it's in combat, basically, you get 3 extra spells per turn. It seems pretty good, and these are all little support characters that you're probably going to take anyway, so there's a lot of like potential there, I think. And then your Catacrosian Deathglaive, 2 Stalker units, and a Harbinger's unit. Again, this is stuff you might just take anyway, because Stalkers and Harbingers are really good. You get the Supernatural Strike Force. After armies are set up, but before the first battle round, if all units from this battalion are wholly within 12 of the Harbinger's unit, you can move any units from the battalion up to 6. So you get a 6-inch pre-game move out of that, with basically your super melee units. Your Aegis Immortal, you get an Archai unit, or 2 Immortal Guard units, and 2 Immortal Guard units. You get Undying Guardians. The Morghast Archai unit from this battalion has the Soulbound Protector's ability from the Immortal Guard Warscroll. In addition, when you use the Soulbound Protector's ability, it's on a 5+, the wound or mortal wound is negated instead of being allocated to a unit from this battalion. So that's pretty cool. And basically, you get to do the Shrug, the Protector's ability from the Guard Warscroll, and when you use it, the 5+ negates it. And it doesn't get allocated instead, so it just goes away. You get the Cavalos Lance. So many hard words to say in here. You get Arch Cavalos Xantos, or a Liege Cavalos, and then 2 Death Rider units. And it's Liege Companions. Units from this battalion can charge even if they retreated early in the same turn, if they're wholly within 12 of the Liege in the same battalion. When it's made. In addition, once per turn, you can use a Death Rider Wedge command ability from the unit in this battalion without spending a real discipline point to do so. So you'll notice later on, every unit in this army has their own command ability, which represents the fact that even just like the unit leaders in this army are like tactically superior to like regular people and regular warriors from other armies. And then finally, the Mortec Ballisteri. This is your artillery unit. You have a Bone Shaper, 1 Mortec Guard unit, and up to 2 Mortec Crawlers. Sorry, it's 2 Mortec Crawlers, not up to 2. Vital assets, roll a dice before you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a Mortec Crawler from this battalion while they're within 3 inches of the guard. Add 2 to the roll if the Crawler is within 3 of the Mortesian Bone Shaper from the same battalion. On a 4+, it's allocated to the Mortec Guard instead of the Crawler. So your giant murder catapults can shrug their damage over to your battle line troops. And we're into Warscrolls, and look at the text, because they have so many abilities. It's bonkers. I mean, this is Nagash, so Nagash. The only change to Nagash, I'm not going to bother going over him, is that his heal everything within, I think, 18. It's not D3 anymore, it's just 3. His invocation of Nagash, it's just 3. Start of your hero phase, if his model's on the battlefield, pick up to 5 units. They're summonable or friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers units in any combination, so it's either or. For each of those units, you can either heal up to 3 wounds that have been allocated to it, or return a number of models to the battlefield with a combined wound characteristic of 3 or less. So, yeah. No more rolling. He just brings stuff back. Then we have Catacross, the Mortarch of the Necropolis. There's so many weapons. He's got the Indicat, which is 1 attack. Why would it ever? Oh, never. Oh, it goes up. That's right. Yeah. 3s and 3s, -3/3 damage. He's more dangerous the more wounded he is. The Shield of Morris, because he gets more involved basically in the fight the more wounded they get. It's the... That's right, and your companions go down too. That's what it is, because he has 20 wounds. 20 wounds! He only moves 4. 3+ save, bravery 10. 20 wounds. Now you can't take him in the... Because he's got a specific legion. He's a Morris Praetorian. He won't go in the one that gets him +1 save, so I'm not giving him a 2+ save. But 20 wounds. That's right, and as he suffers wounds, when he's got 13 wounds on him, he does none of the additional abilities for his companions. But his attacks go up, because he gets madder, so he gets more involved in the cat starts fighting. The Shield of Mortis gets 1 attack at the beginning. Sorry, it can't be used until you get to 4 wounds. Or, no, it's on a 4. Where is it? It's when you get, that's right, he gets his shield involved basically when he's all by himself. Where's the Shield of Mortis? It is... Oh, it becomes a weapon, that's right. He actually picks up the shield to fight with. So 3+, 3+, -2, 2 damage. Yeah, he goes to using the Shield of Mortis with 4 attacks. So he goes to having 8 attacks when he's down to 13. When he has 7 wounds left, he's got 8 attacks by himself, 3s and 3s. Half of them are -3, 3 damage, half of them are -2, 2 damage. So he becomes a super killing machine the more wounded he gets. And he's got his Natterite Dagger, Natterite Dueling Blades, Soul Reaver Great Blade, and the Spirit Dagger. And they are basically all 3s and 3s, but -1 damage. Actually, they're all exactly the same. This should just be one stat line, but the difference is that I think their weapons, they drop off because they die. Because these guys are all armed with different things. So in the beginning, he's got an additional 13 attacks at 3s and 3s -1, and 1 damage. And then they all go away. He's going to lose 13 attacks, but get like 8 super kill you attacks instead. And then deadly combinations. If an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a Shield of Mortis is 6, the attack inflicts 2 mortal wounds in addition to normal damage. He's the Mortarch of the Necropolis. At the start of the hero phase, if this model is on the battlefield, you can pick 3 different friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers units, wholly within 24. For each of those units, you can either heal up to 3 wounds allocated to that unit, or if no wounds are allocated to it, you return a number of slain models with a combination of 3 or less. So he has the same, he basically has Invocation of Nagash just for Ossiarch Bonereapers within 24. Not anywhere on the battlefield like he does, and not for 5 units, only for 3. Natterite weapons. This is going to be true for Natterite weapons all through the book. If an unmodified hit roll for Natterite weapons is 6, it has 2 instead of 1. So it's got exploding 6s for hit rolls. And his command abilities are Endless Duty. You can use command ability if you're shooting phase or any combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit wholly within 12 of the model. Add 1 of the attack characteristic weapons used by that unit in the phase. You cannot pick the same unit more than once. So you can buy additional attacks for a weapon, basically. And then, remember, that lets you do that for the catapults. When you see the catapults, you're going to see why that's crazy. Supreme Lord of the Bonereapers. You can use this command ability in your hero phase if Catacross is your general. If you do so, until your next hero phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Bonereapers, wholly within 18. Add 1 to save rolls to target friendly Morris Praetorian units that are wholly within 18 of this model. Only use it once per hero phase. So he doesn't get everyone gets +1 all the time, but he can give it out basically for one of his duty points. And he doubles down, +1 to hit and that. So if you don't want to use them, just do it, because you're not really losing on either of those things. And then you have an Aviarch Spymaster. Once per turn, you can roll a dice when your opponent receives a command point, and a 4+ just goes away. So your round command points go away on 4+. And then your Gnosis Scrollbearer, at the start of your hero phase, you can pick an enemy unit in the battlefield, subtract until your next hero phase, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit when they target a Bonereaper unit, because you basically tell them the tactic to use. And then Prime Necrophoros, when you use this model Supreme Lord of the Bonereapers Legion command ability, friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper units that are wholly within 36 get it instead of 18. So he hits the whole table basically until you've taken, because when does that guy go away? He goes away first. He's the first one to die. So the banner goes first. So his command ability shrinks down to 18 from 36 as soon as the banner bearer is dead. But you still have to take 3 wounds for that to happen. I'm sorry, 4 wounds for that to happen. And then Nagash, we're not going to talk about Nagash because we know him. And Archon the Black's the same. Pretty much. I didn't notice anything different with Archon the Black. Archcavalo Xantos. This is the dude on the back of the big horsey, the special character. He's pretty cool, 12-inch move, 3+ save, bravery 10, 7 wounds. He's kind of like a dark version of the Lord Celestant. He's got Dark Lance, which is 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. I believe it gets bonus damage on the charge. And then Natterite Battle Shield, 3s and 4s, -1 damage. I believe it also gets exploding 6s. No, it doesn't. It's only the daggers that do. Yeah, Dark Lance is +1 damage on the charge. And then Hooves, Teeth, and Barbed Tail, 6 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 damage. +1 damage to the Spear in the charge. Hatred of the Living, reroll wound rolls of 1 made by this model to target Order and Destruction units, and reroll wound rolls for any wounds that target Chaos. So he kind of doesn't like Order and Destruction, but he hates Chaos. Unstoppable Charge, after this model's made a charge move, pick an enemy unit within 1 and roll a number of dice equal to the charge roll. It's the same as the Ogre roll, basically. For every 6 to a mortal wound, in addition, this model can move an extra 3 inches when it piles in, if it charged in the same turn. So he gets 6-inch pounds on the charge, and does impact hits just like Ogres, actually. Command abilities are Endless Duty. Use this command ability in your shooting phase or in combat phase. If you do so, pick a unit within 12. Wholly within 12, sorry, add one of their attack characteristics. He's the same one, Endless Duty, that Big Boy had. He is also Morris Praetorian, so he's from the same legion, basically. Can't pick the same unit more than once. And then Still Their Breath. Use command ability in your shooting phase or any combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Morris Praetorian unit. It's only within 24 inches of this model. Reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks. He basically hands out Hatred of the Living. So reroll anything against, or reroll any wound rolls against Chaos, and 1s against Order and Destruction. And the baby version has the same Endless Duty and Unstoppable Charge rolls, and then is slightly not as good for movement. He's movement 10. And then his Commander's Blade is not the same as the Spear, so it's 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. Everything else is the same. The Bone Shaper, the Mortizan Bone Shaper, 5-inch move, 4+ save, Bravery 10, 5 wounds, just a support character. Has a Talon, 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, 1 damage. He's a Bone Shaper. In your hero phase, you can pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit within 6. This model, you can either heal up to 3 wounds or bring 3 models back. So just no magic, just brings dudes back to life. I told you you're going to use these support heroes. They're really good. He's also a wizard. He can do Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and the Shard Storm spell. As additional, he gets 1 more from the faction list. Shard Storm has a casting value of 5. If cast, pick an enemy unit and roll 1 dice for each model from that unit. It's within 18 invisible. For each 6, take a mortal wound. So big units get shredded on 6s, basically. Then you get your Soul Reaper, the Mortizan Soul Reaper. Same core stats, 5-inch move, 4+ save, Bravery 10, 5 wounds. Has a Soul Scythe, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. And then his abilities are Deathly Touch. If an unmodified hit roll for the size of the 6 does 2 mortal wounds, the attack sequence ends. Soul Reaper, you can reroll hit rolls for attacks made with his Soul Reaper Scythe. The target has 5 or more models, so reroll your misses, you have 3 attacks, which is pretty cool. And he's a wizard. Cast 1 and bind 1, and knows Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Soul Blast. Soul Blast, casting value of 7. If cast, you can either roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3, or roll 1 dice for a visible enemy within 18. On a 1, nothing happens, 2d3 mortal wound, 4+ d3 mortal wounds. So the closer in he gets with more units, the better potentially he does doing damage, which is kind of awesome. Then you have the Mortizan Soul Mason. I love this guy in his silly chair. So he's got 6 wounds instead of 5, and basically the same other core stats. He's got 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, -1 d3 damage, and then his Ossified Claws, 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, -1 damage. The Mortech Throne, at the end of your hero phase, roll a dice for this model. On a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 5, he can attempt to cast Soul Guide, even if he's already cast something this phase. On a 6, and even if it's already been cast this phase. On a 6, this model can attempt to cast Soul Guide d3 more times, even if a casting attempt has been made for that spell in the same phase. He's a wizard. He can cast 2 and bind 2, and he knows Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Soul Guide. Soul Guide has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick a friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit wholly within 24. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made that unit until your next hero phase. So he's your like to hit dude. And on a 2 to 5, he can cast it twice. On a 6, he can cast it d3 additional times. It's you're gonna have a lot of casting in this army, which means you're probably gonna wear out dispel attempts pretty fast, and that's a pretty legit ability. And then Vokmortian, the Master of the Bone Tie, this guy that comes in the starter set. He's got an extra wound as well, and then he's got the Gaze of Death. His shooting attack, 12-inch range, 3s and 2s, -1 d3 damage with 1 attack. And then melee weapons, the Staff of Retribution, 2 attacks at 2-inch range, 3s and 3s, -1 d3 damage. And he's got a Contract of Nagash. So he's the one holding the contracts of all the souls. I love it. At the start of the combat phase, roll a die. On a 5+, pick an enemy within 3 inches of Vokmortian. The enemy cannot attack until in that combat phase. Period. Just 5+, you're within 3 inches of me, can't fight. This book right here says Nagash says no, and you just stop fighting. I get the Grim Warnings. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units while they're within 12 inches of this model, and subtract 1 from unbinding rolls for wizards attempting to unbind a spell cast by this model. If an enemy general is slain within 3 inches, for the rest of the battle, subtract 2 from bravery of the enemy units within 12 inches of this model instead of 1, and subtract 2 from unbinding rolls for wizards attempting to unbind a spell cast with this model instead of 1. So, yeah, if your general gets killed nearby, basically, he's like, it's gonna happen, Nagash is gonna get mad, and then if you die nearby and you've not listened, yeah, Nagash gets mad. He's a wizard, cast 2, unbinds 2. He knows Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, Mortal Touch, and then the Allegiance ones. Mortal Touch is a casting value of 8. If cast, pick an enemy model within 1 inch of the caster, invisible. On a 5+, they're slain. The range of the spell cannot be modified. Just 5+ kill you on an 8. Oh my god. Alariel, doesn't matter. Anybody, 5+ dead. That's a crazy spell. And he's going to go last too, right? And he's got plus to cast, so it's on an 8. But he's plus to cast, but he could also be +2 to cast. He could be on a 6 potentially if your general's dead nearby and dead. Just like anybody, Archeon, Alariel, anybody, 6+ or 5+ dead. That's bonkers. I mean, it's like, it's corner case, right? It's a Hail Mary, but if it happens on someone huge, people are going to be chucking dice, for sure. And he's a good enough support character. Like you'll see later, he's not that many points for a +1 to +1/-1 caster with 2 spells. And then just all of his other general stuff that he does. He's pretty good. The Mortec Guard. So these are your basic core battle line guys. 4-inch move, they are slow, so it's good that you have the discipline ability for +3 movement. 4+ save though, bravery 10, 1 wound. I mean, they're immune to battle shocks, bravery, who cares? They have Natterite Blades, which again, unmodified hits of 6 cause 2 instead of 1, and spears do the same thing. And then they've got basically 3s and 4s, -1, 1 damage. And then they're all 2 attacks with either a 2-inch range. And the blades give you a rend, the spears give you none, but a 2-inch range. A Great Blade, which I think 1 in every 10 can have, is 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 1 damage. Doesn't do additional damage. I think except for on the... No, never does additional damage. And then Necrophorus, 1 every 10 can be a Necrophorus. Add 1 to run charge rolls for you that includes a Necrophori, which is your banner. Your Hekatos gets +1. So this is when you saw all those abilities that procced off Hekatoses, this is just the unit leader in this army. Sorry, in this unit. And then you have your command ability, which is Shield Wall, which remember you could potentially use for free if you use the Battalion. Use command ability at the start of your combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Mortec Guard unit that includes a Mortec Hekatos. Reroll save rolls for attacks that target that unit until the end of the combat phase. Reroll armor saves. So now we're talking about, if you take that Legion with +1 save, 3+ rerollable armor saves for potentially every unit in your army. That is so crazy. Like, that is such a crazy core battle line unit. Your Death Riders, these are your knightly guys. They are 12-inch move, 3 wounds each, 4+ save, bravery 10. They got blades and spears, same thing, exploding 6s. But on the charge, with the spears, you get a 5+ instead of a 6 for the exploding 6s. And yeah, the same basic stats: 3s and 4s, -1 for the blades. 3s and 4s, no extras, but 2-inch range for the spears. And then hooves and teeth are 4s and 3s, 1 damage with 2 attacks. Necrophorus, 1 every 5 can be a Necrophorus. I'd want to run charge rolls. And that's important. Like they're slow to move unless you use your discipline points, but they're charging at +1 too, so they can kind of long bomb charges. So they're a bit deceptively slow on their stats with like the abilities they have from the gajillion discipline points you have. Because remember, if you have so think about it. Your general gives you 1. Every hero gives you 1. So let's say you have 4 heroes, you got 5 now all of a sudden at the start of every turn. And every unit you roll a die again on a 6+ to give you another 1. So, and that's including your heroes that you had. So if you've got like 12 units, you could get 2 more. So you're talking about earning 70 points a turn potentially on average rolls. If you have 7 units, 4 heroes, I don't know, and your basic core 1 that you get every turn. You're going to get to use a lot of these abilities basically. And then your Hekatos gets +1 attacks with his Spear Blade. Your command ability is the Death Rider Wedge. You can use this command ability when a friendly Cavalos Death Riders unit that includes a Mortec Hekatos finishes a charge move. Pick an enemy unit within 1 inch. And roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in the Death Riders unit for every 5+ do a mortal wound. In addition, in the following combat phase, you can move an extra 3 inches when you pile in. So, kind of like the character. The Immortus Guard. This is the other version of the Stalkers. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the forum guys. And a unit of Immortus Guard can have any number of models. Each one's armed with a Dread Halberd and a Nadronite Battle Shield. 5-inch move, 4 wounds, 3+ save, and bravery 10. They are the big base guys, so their halberds are pretty cool. 2 attacks, 2-inch range, 3s and 3s, -2 damage. And your battle shield, 2 attacks, 4s and 3s, 1 damage. You get Deadly Combination, an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with the Netherite battle shields of 6. It inflicts a mortal wound, in addition to any normal damage. And then Soulbound Protectors and Mortis Guard units will use their own bodies to shield characters. So for friendly Ossiarch Bonereapers heroes within 3 inches of a friendly unit with this ability, on a 2+, you must allocate the wound or mortal wound to a friendly unit with this ability within 3, instead of to that hero. So they just literally throw themselves in front of wounds for characters. Your command ability is Crushing Assault. And remember, you're getting a lot of wounds back each turn too. Crushing Assault, you can use this command ability in your combat phase after a friendly Mortis Guard unit that's fought in this phase for the first time. If you do so, that unit is within 3 inches of the enemy unit. You can make a pylon move and then attack with its battle shields for a second time. So only with the battle shields though. So you're not getting your Dread Halberds again, but you're getting your battle shields twice, and you can pylon and fight twice. Which is cool, because you get a lot of these points to spend. And then the Stalkers, okay, I love these guys. They're basically the judges from the Transformers movie. They have 4 heads, and their faces spin to be a different aspect, and the aspects give you different abilities, basically. So I love, something about that makes me really happy, because if you haven't seen the cartoon Transformers movie, I'm not talking about the Michael Bay movies. You have no idea what I'm talking about, but basically the guys that use Sharkicons as a punishment, they're my favorite guys in the whole movie. That weren't Eric Idle, I think it was. So anyway, 6-inch move, 4+ save, 4 wounds per every 10. Their Falchions have 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, -2 damage with a 1-inch range, and the Spirit Blades have 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 damage. They throw out a lot of dice. They have, and 1 in every 3 can have the Dread Falchions. So normally they have the Spirit Blades. The Quadric Aspect. So at the start of each combat phase, pick an aspect. You can reroll hit rolls with the Blade Strike, reroll save rolls with the Blade Parry, the Destroyer rerolls wounds, and Precision improves your rend and damage with the melee weapons by 1. So Precision's pretty great because your 5 attacks become 3s and 3s, -2, 2 damage. If you already have extra ways of getting plus to hit, like you hit on 2s because of an aura ability, and maybe reroll wounds because of an artifact, they will blunder through stuff all of a sudden. And then command abilities Hunt and Kill. Use it at the start of your hero phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Necropolis Stalker unit. You can reroll run charge rolls for that unit until your next hero phase. In addition, until your next hero phase, when that unit makes a move, it can pass across terrains if it can fly. Your Morghast Archive, pretty sure they're basically the same. They fly. Halberds, 9-inch move, 4+ save, bravery 10, 6 wounds. They have 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2, 3 damage with the halberds. If they have swords, it's 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. And then Herald of the Accursed One, subtract 1 from bravery characteristic of enemy units when they're within 6 of them. And then Ebonrot Armor, they get a flat+ wound shrug. The Harbingers don't get the wound shrug. They get Harbinger of Death, which is you can attempt to charge this unit even if it's within 18 instead of 12, and it's 3d6 instead of 2d6. And they get the same halberds and the spirit swords, exact same stats. Okay, the Mortec Crawler. This thing breaks my brain. 4-inch move, 4+ save, 12 wounds per every 10. It has a bunch of different ways of firing its guns. So it can either do Necrotic Skulls, Cauldron of Torment, or the Cursed Stele. If you're doing the Necrotic Skulls, it's 6 to 36, 3 attacks, 2s and 3s, rend dash, but damage is 5. So potentially 15 wounds out of that thing. And you can buy it attacks, remember, with your points too. The Cauldron of Torment, if you fire that one, same range, 1 attack. No attack sequence. Instead, pick an enemy unit in range and roll a dice for each model in the unit. Add the modifier of the Cauldron of Torment for the damage table above. If the result is equal or greater than their bravery, they're slain. Slain. Not just wounded, slain. So for the beginning, for the Cauldron of Torment, you're basically dash for that. And if it's, so like what we're talking about is if you have low leadership units, so it's equal or greater to bravery, there's a lot of bravery 6 units out there that are multiple wound. So we're talking about 6s doing multiple damage here, because like if you're like, let's say a 4 or 5 damage model, and all of a sudden you've taken, you roll that 6, they're just dead. Now, as you get wounded, it gets harder, right? So when you've got 5 to 7 wounds, I know you start getting -1 of the roll, you can't kill bravery 6 models anymore. But yeah, that's unmodified bravery characteristics. So there's no protecting you with banners or whatever. Anything that's got a low leadership, just dead. And really bad leadership models, Grots. It's like a 30-man Grot blob with like a courage or a bravery of like 5 or 4, just obliterated. And then the Cursed Stele, do not make an attack sequence. Instead, pick one enemy model in range, an attack roll, and roll 2d6. Add the modifier for Cursed Stele shown on the damage table above. If the result is equal or greater than their wounds characteristic, they're just dead. So now the Cursed Stele is interesting because it actually gets better the more wounded you are. So in the beginning, it's -3. And then if the result is greater than their wounds, they're slain. So, but when you're damaged, you're +3. So 10 plus wound, you turn the Cursed Stele. 2d6 plus 3 higher than wounds, you just kill them. So like a 6 or 7 wound support character, you just kill. They just die. Note that the chance of slaying a target with the Cursed Stele increases the attack model suffers damage. So they even made a designer's comment. This was intentional. I really like these designer comments being in these books now, because if something doesn't make sense, they typically call it out as being like, no, this is what we actually meant. And then yeah, other than that, melee weapons, your crawler tools, 1 inch range, 6 attacks, 3s and 4s, 1 damage. So it's very, very easy to kill in melee. Or not very easy to kill. It's very like lightly guarded basically from like an attacks point of view. And then your Gothazar Harvester, it's 6-inch move, 4+ save, bravery 10, 10 wounds. It's not as big as I thought it was. I thought it was like super behemoth-y. It's not, it's just a monster. It doesn't even need up a behemoth slot. There's no behemoths in here. There's just a war machine and monsters. It's got its Death's Head Maw, it's a gun, 4 attacks, 3+ save. It's range 16 in the beginning. 3s and 3s -1 damage, just shoots, I guess, bones at you. And then melee weapons, it has a sickle, and it's armed with one of the following options: either bludgeons, hooves and tail, and Death's Head Maw, or Soul Cleaver Sickles, Ossified Hooves and Tail, and Death's Head Maw. So you get one of the variations here. So if you wanted to have the gun, basically, you'd be taking the hooves, Ossified Hooves and Tail, and Death's Head Maw. So it's bludgeons. Yeah, you're always getting the Ossified Hooves and Tail, and Death's Head Maw, and then you're taking between the Soul Cleaver and the bludgeons. If you opt for the Soul Cleaver Sickles, they are attacks 6 in the beginning, dropping that 2 at the end, and then 3s and 3s -2, 2 damage. If you take the, actually it's all the same. They're exactly the same. They just do slightly different special rolls. For the bludgeons, if the unmodified hit roll for an attack is a 6, does 2 mortal wounds, and the attack sequence ends. And then the sickles, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by the sickles if the unit has 5 or more models. So you can either have exploding 6s do mortal wounds. I'd probably take that one, or you can have +1 to hit if they have 5 more models. I think the bludgeons are always going to be better, because mortal wounds are always better, because then there's no more dice to roll after you roll that 6 to hit. And then Bone Harvest. Roll a dice each time a model is slain within 3 inches. On a 4+, you pick friendly Ossiarch Bonereaper unit within 6 of this model. If you do so, the slain model had a wound characteristic of 4 or less, you can heal 1 wound allocated to that unit. If the slain model had a wound characteristic of 5 to 9, heal D3 wounds, and 10 or more D6 wounds allocated to that unit. If there's no wounds allocated, you can pick to return a number of models equal to that wound characteristic or less, the number of wounds you could have healed. So basically, he turns casualties into more Bonereapers coming back. He's like a little blender. And we got the endlessly spells. So the Nightmare Predator, Soul Stealer, Carrion, and Bone Tithe Shrieker. This is the Predator over here. This is the Carrion, and this is the Shrieker? No. Carrion, Shrieker, Predator? Yes. Different order in the picture. Anyway, the Predator is a predatory spell, moves 2d6 and can fly. You summon on a 7+, and only Bonereapers can do this one. It's placed within 6 invisible. And then Soul Linked, it's Soul Linked to the caster. When the Predatory Endless spell is moved at the start of the battle round, any that are Soul Linked to the caster move first, followed by any endless spells that are not. Soul Linked spells are always moved by the player whose army included them. That's so handy. The player that won the roll off determine who moves endless spell first must move all their Soul Linked spells first, followed by their opponent. You must subtract 1 from casting rolls for wizards that is Soul Linked to an endless spell. A caster cannot be Soul Linked to more than 1 spell at a time. If the caster is slain, it's immediately dispelled. It's a perpetual hunter. When this model is set up, the player that set it up can pick an enemy hero and as its prey and then immediately make a move. If that model's prey is destroyed, this model is dispelled. So it only goes after one thing. And then Death Incarnate, after this model moves, roll a dice for each unit within 3. On a 2+, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If that unit was the model's prey, it's on a 2+, it's D6 mortal wounds. And Bonereapers aren't affected. So it's just a cruise missile for its target, which is pretty great. And it doesn't get moved by your opponent ever. The Carrion, the big bird. Predatory that can fly, 16, and then summons on a 6. Anywhere in the battlefield visible. It's Soul Linked again, same as before. It's a Soul Thief. At the end of each phase, roll a dice if any Chaos, Destruction, or Order models within 6 inches and slain during that phase. On a 1 or 2, heal a wound allocated to the caster. On a 3 to 4, inflict 1 mortal wound on each Chaos, Destruction, or Order unit within 6 of this model. On a 5/6, do both those things. So it steals souls back to the caster, and then also potentially does wounds to other people. And then second sight, anything visible to this model is visible to the caster that's soul linked to the model, which is pretty cool for the purpose of spells. The Battalion Shrieker, which is the big floaty skull head. It can fly up to 8 inches in predatory. You summon on a 5 and place it within 12 inches invisible. It's soul linked like before. Portent of Doom, subtract 1 from the bravery of units while they're within 12 inches of this model. Ossiarch Bonereapers are not affected. And then no escape, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by Bonereapers that targeting it within 12. So another way, you can potentially get +2 to hit very easily for, I mean, you can't hit on 1s, but like another way to get +1 to hit. It's the least useful. I think the Nightmare Printer is probably the coolest one. And then pitch battle profiles. Let's look at some points. The Death Riders are 5 up to 15. 18 for 5, and then, or sorry, 180 for 5, sorry, and then 480 if you want to take a discount for 3 units of them put together. Mortek Guard, 10 to 40, 130 for 10, 440 for 40. Mortek Crawlers, 200 for 1. Harvesters, 200 for 1. Arch Cavalo Xantos is 220 for 1. Obviously, his character. Catacross, the Mortarch of the Necropolis, is 500 points. He's got 20 wounds, though, and he's pretty great. The Liege Cavalos is 200, the Bone Shaper is 130, Soul Mason is 140, Soul Reaper is 120, Vakmorshin, the Master of the Bone Tide, is 180. For a cast who's spell 2, that's pretty legit. Archon's 360, Nagash is 880 points. My God. The Immortus Guard, he's 3 to 12. This is the big shield 50 mil base guys. They are 200 points for 3. The Morghast Archives are 210 for 2 up to 6, and then the Morghast Harbingers are 210 for 2 up to 6. The Stalkers are 3 to 6 and 200 points. And then your Warscroll Battalions, the Aegis Immortal is 80, the Catacrosian Deathglaive is 80, the Cavalos Lance is 120, the Ballisteri is 100, the Shield Corps is 120, the Trident is 110, the Cohort is 100, and then your endless spells are for the Carrion 20, for the Shrieker 30, and for the Predator 40. And your Bone Tithe is free. You get no allies of any kind. Not Death Lords, not nobody. These guys stand alone with Nagash leading them. And that's it. A look at the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Really interesting book. It took a really interesting design choice. It took some core mechanics and flipped them using the discipline points instead of CPs. It messes with enemy CPs. I really like the way this book headed because it's a new army. It's all self-contained. It has a gimmick. And it feels like it's going to be a lot of fun to play just from a planning point of view. You have this resource pool of these discipline points you can use. They can make your army faster. They can make them hit better. You get a lot of overlapping auras for pluses to hits. And even though you've only got some really durable 1 wound like line infantry, there's lots of ways to bring them back. The Harvesters, your support characters being able to heal nearby, your leader being able to heal a bunch of units nearby. This is going to be a very durable army. It doesn't summon new units, but it does potentially bring back tons of guys each turn. And the fact that you can bring back models with wound characteristics of 3 or less, you'll notice that your big fellas are 4 wounds. So unfortunately, they can't come back, but your Death Riders are 3. So your cavalry can come back basically throughout the game if they die. So I feel like the cavalry is going to be really popular. Just the basic line troop, 3+ rerollable saves. Oh my gosh, if they have that Legion of +1 armor save, and then 3+ saves on like all of your big stuff too. Yeah, it's gonna be real good. It feels like a very interesting army to play because you're gonna get to make a lot of choices on how you spend your resources each turn. And I like that in an army, so I'm excited to play against it. Obviously, Owen's gonna be playing it, and while you do have the big power piece in Nagash, I think that Catacross is definitely a contender because he does a lot of what Nagash does without just feeling like maybe it's overkill to have this one single piece that can die. And actually, he has more wounds than Nagash does too. Like having 20 wounds is a lot of wounds. So yeah, I'm stoked to try them out. If you want to check out our first battle report, playing with the starter set, you can go up here in the cards, and you can also check out my review of I'm so excited, my new Ogre tribes, the War Tribes, coming back. I'm going to be just splitting off a portion because my Ogre army for Warhammer Fantasy Battle was so big. There was no way to really even use it all anymore. I'm splitting off a portion to do a War Tribe for the Ogres, and I've gotten started on that this week too, which you'll be able to see on the paint table. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that review. I'll see you for more of these in the future. Next time, Ash. Happy gaming. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to support the channel, of course, like and subscribe and hit the little bell below so you get notifications when I post future content. I do post stuff 7 days a week. If you want to support the channel further, you can, of course, buy a t-shirt through Spreadshirts, buy a measuring gauge or objective markers from Death Designs, or, of course, most importantly, there is Patreon. Patreon is what makes all this possible, keeps the lights on, pays for the studio costs, pays for the equipment, model costs, and everything else, and most importantly, puts food in my kids' bellies and a roof over their heads. Big thanks to everyone, past, future, who supported me. I do this stuff because of you guys, and of course, I will continue doing it as long as I can.